must be honest, I found that quite a hard review. Obviously, the West Ham won, Brighton Hove Albion won, whatever, 85th minute, whatever it was, scissor kick from Mopai, West Ham against 10 men. I found the review quite difficult, and not because it's hard to talk about a game. Clearly, it's not. I very rarely stuck for words, but a lot of the comments on the live chat, I sort of try to balance it out. So I give myself half hour. I've gone away. I've had a shower and whatnot, and had a cup of tea. But I'm trying to just balance out that game in my mind, really. And there were a lot of comments on there. And I understand that people are frustrated. And I understand it's directly after a game. I sometimes get very annoyed after a game. But there were some really odd comments on there. And ones that clearly I just don't agree with. I'm also mindful that maybe it's a slightly different crowd directly after the game than maybe watch these sort of daytime, morning, lunchtime videos, so to speak. But there were a couple of Moyes outs. There was a number of Sel Antonios. I think a lot of stick for a lot of players that have done really well for us. Antonio, number one. Fornals, certainly, who's done really well, has been an excellent player for us. And obviously the criticism of David Moyes. Now, don't get me wrong, because we always try and do on a Hammers Chat, we always try and deal with it on a match-by-match basis, which is, let's criticise David Moyes for, I think, not picking the right team. I'm going to get to that in a minute. You'll have all read the title of this video. I'm going to get to that in a minute. But I just want to sort of balance that out by just saying this. But also, you've got to take into account what David Moyes has done for the club. And I understand it was only 2 comments. But when you put it together with the Sel Antonio, or, Fornals should never play for the club again, all this sort of stuff, Antonio should never play for the club again. Let's see if we can sell Fornals, sell Benrahma. There was a lot of it on there. Drop Zuma. A lot of the stuff was on there, right? And I think, well, hold on just a second, because let's deal with that as a game. And it was a crap game. And I think you can also look back at the last 2 or 3 games. So if you watch these videos, that I think a number of these players should have been dropped over the last 2 or 3 games. I felt Lanzini should have been in there. Benrahma, I felt needed a rest, or maybe Fornals. Antonio, felt he needs to shake things up. I think he needs to deal with it in January. We'll get to that in just a second. But so it's not that. It's just the throwing the baby out with the bathwater stuff, that everything is now super crap. And it's basically everything's either brilliant and West Ham are massive, or it's terrible and we have to sell everyone. And I just think we're probably somewhere in the middle, as is often the case with these things. That doesn't mean, though, that you can't do anything about it and you shouldn't do anything about it. And this is where I'm often interested in a manager's mindset, and David Moyes' mindset. Because David Moyes wants to achieve things at West Ham, right? He does. David Moyes wants to be a successful manager. And I've spoken over the last week or 2 about managers having their favourites. And as someone pointed out in the preview, I can't even remember who it was, someone pointed out, well, he said, all managers have their favourites. Well, yeah, they do, but that doesn't mean you can't talk about it. And that doesn't mean that it's necessarily right. But he was quite right. All managers do have their favourites. And I understand why you would have them, because David Moyes clearly trusts certain players. But there comes a point where surely your own ambition supersedes that. Right? Well, your own ambition means, all right, I trust this player. He's done a job for me in the past. He'll probably continue to do a job for me in the future. But right now, he's hindering my job prospects. Having too much faith in these players, or the route you've decided to go down, is going to be of a hindrance to you achieving what you want to achieve. And David Moyes' own declaration of ambition, let's put it that way, is to qualify for the top 4. And to push for it. Now, I know he also tries to rein in expectations, so we've got to take baby steps. We do, but you can still make changes incrementally and slowly, and doing so within the parameters of the team and the squad you've got. Because actually, there are already players there. So if you've got an attacking midfielder out of form, okay, do we ideally wait until the next transfer window or the one after until we can get another really good attacking midfielder? Okay, maybe, but you've actually got one there in Lanzini who really has shown every every sign that he should be playing and done everything that's asked of him. So I do wonder about David Moyes' mindset. I wonder, there will come a point where he looks at it and says, okay, we're not scoring goals from open play, we need to deal with it. He may have reached that point already, at which point he's got two choices. He's either going to try and coach the team to score more goals, actually three choices: coach the team to score more goals, leave them doing exactly what they're doing and hope they come good, or three, just change the starting lineup. And this video is obviously, look, I say this video's about, I've already been speaking for long enough already, but this what makes it really important for the striker and Jesse Lingard. And my word, it's been really evident that we miss Jesse Lingard. Before I talk about him, this football. I was going to say it's football sponsored, but it's not. This video is sponsored by the One Football app. The link is in the description below. If you want to see the terrible stats from yesterday, which is how much possession we didn't have, it'll all be on the One Football app. You can put all the news, all the West Ham news together into one place for you. Just click the button when you download it, and it is free, by the way. Click I support West Ham, and that'll be. I'll tell you what, it won't just be all the Brighton stats. There'll be a lot of transfer gossip on there. In fact, there's a load of transfer names. I'll be back tomorrow discussing a lot of these transfers, by the way. In the meantime, the link's in the description below, the One Football app. Jesse Lingard, we miss him. Do you remember that thing that Jesse Lingard does? He sort of carries the ball very slowly. Not quite a dribble, but he carries the ball almost just walking. If it was a horse, it would be the canter, right? He sort of carries it at, not the full gallop, carries it at canter. He draws, what he does is he makes the defender match his speed. Then he goes. He changes speed really, really well and seems to be able to run as quickly with the ball as he can without it. And also he's direct. You don't feel he overindulges. Too many times in recent games we overindulge, too many dribbles. Masuaku gets a lot of stick for it, by the way. But he's not the only one that does it. And it's, in fact, the commentator picked it out in that game against Brighton. Said Masuaku does some good work and he gets himself into a good position. He didn't quite finish his sentence because something else happened. What he meant is don't get to good position and cross it. Or deliver the final ball. And it seems to be a massive feature of our play, and I understand that David Moyes wants players to take us up the pitch. Well, Jesse Lingard did that, but he would make the final pass or he would have a shot. I got the impression in that game that on two occasions Benrahma wanted to curl the ball into the top right corner of the goal. And it didn't matter what else was on, that's what Benrahma was going to do. He was going, I don't care. He was thinking, I don't care if there's someone in a better position than me there. I don't care if there's someone over there. I'm going to curl the ball into the top right corner of the goal. Well, the two occasions he tried it were misses. I felt that actually, I'm going to leave Soufal alone with this one because he's just come back and I thought he actually played really, really well. But I felt he had three shots during the game, didn't he? And it's just at least one of them I would have liked to have seen squared or something else. You also feel that Antonio at the moment it seems determined that he's going to dribble past two or three players. And there was only one time where I looked at him, and it was the time when Declan Rice had a shot, where I thought, actually, he looked like a number 9, where he held up the ball and gave it back to Declan Rice. Declan Rice had the shot. Aside from that, it's not really happening. And I don't know what the situation is with this new guy at Manchester United. I really don't. The new manager, I can't even remember his name, the German guy. But whatever happens, we have to make it. We have to make not just an approach. We have to make it happen for Jesse Lingard. We really, really do, because look, you can only say it so many times, right? You can only say what I say so many times is that Vlasic will come good in the end. But even if you accept that, you have to also accept that it ain't happening now. So what are we going to do? Are we going to wait for Vlasic to come good and then just not contest the Champions League this season? Well, we've already got ourselves into a good position where we can, well, hopefully strike the top 4. But I'll tell you what, if we're not careful, that'll be gone. By the time we get to January, the chances of getting to the top 4 will be gone. We got an opportunity now to go for it. So we can't wait for Vlasic to come good. If Vlasic isn't ready, he isn't ready. Whether he becomes ready in a year's time or 6 months' time, great. If he does, personally, I think his attitude is so good, I think he stands half a chance. But it ain't happening right now. Don't tell me Vlasic going into the team is going to perform as well as Jesse Lingard. And if you agree with that, then surely you have to agree that we have to go and sign Jesse Lingard. Because, look, Antonio's not on form. We need a striker. But also, Antonio ain't getting great service either. Part of that is Antonio's fault. Part of it is the player's fault who's playing around him. And part of it is David Moyes' fault for not devising the system or picking the players or picking the correct team that would get enough out of him. I certainly feel that if you put Lanzini close to Antonio from the start of the game, you probably see a little bit better from Antonio. But Antonio feels his place in the team is secure and he plays like it. Antonio needs to be dropped. And it is really as simple as that. Not sold, and this is why I go back to the start of the video. Not sold, dropped. Dropped from the team. Somebody else needs to come in. Now, we've got to do this. We've got to do it early in January. I don't want to go back and repeat myself. I've covered this in other videos, but it is a must. Jesse Lingard and a striker is a must. I understand that people will make the point that it's probably fallen down a bit since Ogbonna's left. I understand that, but we've covered this before. There are players available, centre-backs, whose contract is running out. If David Moyes wants a centre-back, he can do it, and he can do it relatively cheaply. We'll cover it tomorrow, certainly on that. But in the here and the now, what can David Moyes do? Well, I guess he can play Yarmolenko up front. I don't want him to play Yarmolenko up front. I don't think Yarmolenko's mobile enough. Some of where our play broke down against Brighton was a counter-attack's not quick enough. Yarmolenko's not going to solve that. Another thing he can do is put Bowen up there. I think Bowen, in terms of his endeavour and getting into positions, was fine. Bowen got into good positions in that game. His finishing wasn't good enough. Now, don't get me wrong. His finishing is probably good enough for a right winger who protects the right back, which is what his job is. His finishing certainly not good enough as a striker or to play as a striker that can keep Antonio out of the team. So at the moment, Antonio keeps his job by default. I hear the shouts for Perkins. I understand. Not do I hear the shouts for Perkins. I understand the frustrations. It's basically give the lad a go, give the lad a go. I'd be inclined to give him a go as well, but at some point you've almost got to admit it ain't going to happen. There's no way David Moyes is playing Perkins against Chelsea again. So we'll start against Chelsea with more or less the same team of him hoping he's going to come good. All I can hope is for this one, because I do think we need a striker. I do think I'd like to sign Jesse Lingard. And I'd always be the comments there, forget about Lingard. Forget about Lingard, that's gone. Not necessarily. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't want to at the moment. I looked at that game and I really felt that was screaming out for someone, well, I say for someone of his quality, for him. Namely, the striker we've discussed, we'll be discussing a lot more of them. The one thing he can impact David Moyes, and that is, it's funny, it's a funny one really, that all of a sudden he's got all this faith in Benrahma, who's been criticised for ages. And my one problem with Benrahma is, in this occasion, that I just don't think... I think Benrahma, Fornals and Antonio, I think the three of them together at the moment, it ain't happening, it ain't firing. Got to change something. Get Lanzini in there. The thing... And I don't even talk about Fornals in terms of dropping because I just don't think David Moyes will. I pick on Benrahma in that sense because I think he's David Moyes' least favourite. I get that impression. You might feel differently, but that's what I get the impression anyway. What worries me is that actually, and Benrahma put in a hell of a shift defensively. A couple of his blocks were absolutely sensational. Thought he works really, really hard, and it's that hard work that may well convince Moyes. Actually, I'm going to go with the hard work. Well, that's all well and good. But everyone's working so hard, and somebody said that he didn't feel that Antonio broke a sweat. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. I think Antonio, there's lots of endeavour. I think he's pulling wide. I think he's trying everything, but it's just not happening at the moment. And if we're not going to bank on that, if we're not going to have that sort of quality, and David Moyes is going to rely on us just being tough to beat, we're relying on the set plays again. We can't keep doing that. We need to get back to West Ham. We're scoring some goals from open play. Look. A frustrating game, don't get me wrong, a frustrating game, but there were some good performances in that team. There really were. Declan Rice was absolutely sensational, all right? So I don't agree with, as having had a shower and had a cup of tea, I do not agree with David Moyes. I know all of you watching this don't agree with, Moyes out and all the rest of it. And as I say, I am mindful that that one comment may have been said, well, actually two, but one might have been said tongue-in-cheek, a little twinkle in the eye. And possibly by people that that just instantly reacting after the game. I am mindful of that as well. But some of the Antonio stuff, the Fornell stuff, the Benrahma stuff, the Zuma stuff, someone even said Souček was useless. He just wasn't. He wasn't useless. He really wasn't. There was a lot to take away from that game. There were enough positives to take away from that game, and the negatives are fixable. And here's the point. Whilst the negatives are fixable, they're also obvious. We just have to make sure that David Moyes fixes them.